Hello there and welcome to the Terrace Scottish Football Podcast. My name is Craig Telfer and on today's show I am joined by my close associate Shaughan McGuigan.
Hello there.
And you know what happens when the Dennis Rodman and Jean-Claude Van Damme of the Terrace get together? That is right, we are going to start in the dismal 1997 action comedy movie Double Team. It'll be released to terrible ratings. One critic will describe it as exactly as bad as you'd imagine a Van Damme-Rodman collaboration to be. And maybe, just maybe, we might get the chance to talk about some lower league Scottish football if the chance presents itself.
Just, I don't know if I've ever seen a Dennis Rodman or a film with Dennis Rodman in it.
Oh, that's a good question. Neither have I. Well, you know what, Shaughan? Once we finish up recording, we've got the perfect chance to rectify that. I was going to watch Double Team for research for this podcast, but it was £3.49 to rent on
and unnecessary.
Amazon Prime. And unnecessary, yeah. I mean, let's be honest. It's more important that I watch football highlights and pay more attention to what's going on than pay attention to Double Team. I quite like the idea of us doing it. It's like, did you watch any of the highlights of the games that we're going to talk about? Not really, but wait till you hear my thoughts on Double Team, the 1997 action comedy movie starring Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dennis Rodman.
I like the fact that you... Because I'll be honest, like, so I was out on Sunday. Like, I had a day out on Sunday, so I didn't manage to get too many highlights in on Sunday. Managed to squeeze all of them into to Monday and Tuesday, but it was touch and go in terms of getting everything done. But I do like the fact that you could like squeeze in completely pointless films between Sunday and recording this.
Yeah, well, you know, I unfortunately didn't manage it, but I was able to take in all the stuff that you and I agreed to talk about because, of course, Shaughan, the SPFL League season is back. The boys are back in town, and the boys are back in town with their patented 3-game podcast. Yes, we'll be focusing on one match from the Championship, another game from League One, and a third and final fixture from League Two. I think, to be honest, all 15 matches, there's probably something to discuss, something worthwhile, but we've picked 3 of the biggest and the best for your delight and delectation. We guarantee you goals, all 15 of them. The matches are packed full of action and excitement. We can't guarantee laughter. We'll admit it, that ship sailed a long time ago. But Shaughan, I mean, we're not going to talk about Wraith Rovers and Stennismere. Believe me, we've got months ahead where we can talk about both teams extensively. But how was it for you back at Starks Park with a 1-1 draw against Queen's Park on Saturday?
It was. It was quite dispiriting. Wraith Rovers were the better team. Certainly the first half, they didn't have much control. I thought it was quite eeksy-peeksy at half-time, albeit maybe Wraith were a wee bit unfortunate to be a goal behind. Certainly in the second half, the vast majority of the game took place in Queen's Park's half, albeit it was still due to a very fortunate penalty because, of course, Wraith Rovers only score from the penalty spot. So they were still they got a bit of the rub of the green, I would say, to snatch a point, albeit I thought that was ultimately about worthy that both teams warranted a point. However, Stenny lost out 2-1 when you should have been about 3 or 4 up before you conceded. A frustrating afternoon, a disappointing afternoon, because I thought over the piece, and when I watch Gary Naismith's post-match interviews, I generally find myself agreeing with everything he says most of the time. And I think he got this one absolutely spot on. He said that Alloa were the better team over the 90 minutes, but Stennismere were still perhaps unfortunate not to come away with something in the game. The first 35 minutes, Stenny were the better side, and I've got to say that the performance from Liam McFarlane, the Alloa goalkeeper, just brilliant. To the extent that where it was like, one of my mates would said, the chances we missed. And it was like, we didn't miss the chances. It was the goalkeeper was saving them. Just really impressive stops. And when Alloa signed him, I thought that's a really good signing. You've managed to upgrade PJ Morrison by bringing him in. And you see that calibre performance that he turns in. 4 excellent saves. 2 really good efforts from Mikey Anderson. And there's stuff to like about Stennismere's performance. I thought Dale Carrick showed up well on his debut. He signed on the Friday, and he really gives Stennismere something that they've been missing for a wee bit. His back-to-goal play is absolutely superb, and you can see, it's a word that Tony Anderson uses a lot, deliberate, a lot of the stuff that he wants to do, and I think he'll link up really well with OReilly and Ross Taylor in time. But as the match went on,
Alloa came back into it, and that midfield trio that we spoke about in the big preview podcast were excellent. Curtis Roberts, I mean, Liam McFarlane was most eye-catching player there for the season, mate. Curtis Roberts was excellent everywhere. And just the fact that you've got Stevie Harrington and Stefan Skugel in alongside him, just all those players, for the three of them when they play together, they just like unlock all the best bits of one another and allow them to play. And Harrington just sits in front of the defence and keeps it simple. And Roberts gives you so much verticality and so much drive. And Skugel will just play in the wee spaces in front of the opposition defence and pick passes. And I think Stennismuir didn't really have an answer to them. And they could have had a chance at the end to dig out a point. Just a bit flat. So a lot of positives for Alloa. Stephen Buchanan played really well as well, continuing his early season form. McFarlane was good. Roberts was excellent. And I suppose for Stenny, it's just waiting for players to come back from injury. You know, we've had that terrible injury crisis. But the Magnificent Seven, one of them was signed permanently, Finn Robson. One of them, Josh Walker, left to join Elgin City, and 5 of them have been released. So thank you for your efforts. I think the guys coming in will be a big benefit. And on top of that, probably the highlight of the entire game was Nicky Jamieson coming back. You know, he'd been missed virtually all of last season through injury, but came on as a late sub and got through the game. And I think it's just gently managing him into the action. But that'll be huge. And you get guys like Nicky Jamieson back and Scott McGill and Finlay Gray and Kelsey Ewan. You know, there's a good clutch of players there, and hopefully there's another couple that come in on loan or on permanent basis. But it's disappointing performance, but there were encouraging signs in there to suggest that it won't be all bad.
Well, there you go. As much as we weren't supposed to be discussing either of Stennismuir or Wraith Rovers, we have managed to get them in the first 10 minutes. Good.
You know what happens when you tune into this podcast? It's Wraith Rovers, Stennismuir, and 28 other cunts. However, we're going to make a wee exception here, because talking about teams we're not necessarily supposed to talk about. On Sunday, did you watch the Falkirk's 2 draw with Dundee United?
I was out. I saw the goals, but I was out, so I didn't really see much of it.
This will sound really, really weird, especially coming from someone who is notoriously enjoyed Falkirk's travails over the past 16 years. But I actually felt really proud watching them on Sky Sports. Just the pre-match stuff with the guys coming out, the flag day, big day for the club. The cameras cutting to Jamie Swinney and the crowd, the CEO. Seen guys like Alfie Aguiman, who you'd followed at like BSC Glasgow and Kelty Hearts, like Liam Henderson, who you'd seen playing for Cowdenbeath and Stennismuir and Edinburgh City. And watching these guys like going to play in the top flight, I felt like a parent who's watching their child go on their first lad's holiday. No, they're going to enjoy themselves. It's going to be a bit ropey. You might fear for them at points, but they're probably going to be all right.
And John McGlynn's hat still won't fit him. It's still a very odd. Either he has a very kind of odd-shaped head, or he just has a new hat. I can't quite figure it out.
When you go and buy caps, they're generally one size fits all. But I think when John McGlynn is one size fits all, and that's just that one size fits all, apart from you, John, for whatever reason. When you look at John McGlynn's head, it looks like a delicious revel. You know, the shape of it. I don't understand why he can't find a cap that fits him.
Should be simple. Very much isn't.
Yeah, and as well, before we really get into the action, just want to labour the point. I want to say a big thank you to everyone who tuned into our big lower league preview podcast. It was a lot of stamina needed probably to get through. It was a long podcast. However, I think that the teams were given about 20 minutes each, and if you're covering so many teams, you have to, and you want to do it in a fair and just way, you have to give it that degree of space. And I think it went down quite well. Thank you to everyone who listened to the show. Thank you to everyone who got in touch with us with a secret code word. And a massive thank you to everyone who told us that the moving walkways that you see at airports are indeed called travelators.
I seem to go down. I mean, I enjoyed doing it, as I always do. You're right, it was a long process, but it seemed to go down quite well, so I'm glad everybody enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely. It's not often you can spend 11 hours with someone, come away smelling of cat, and still enjoy yourself. So it was a good way to spend the afternoon. But to say the afternoon, like an entire day.
The entire, yes, all of a Sunday.
Yes, all of a Sunday. Yes, it was good fun, and we'll see you next year. say that. I think we were talking about debating whether or not to do a 24-hour podcast for charity, but we can. I think that's something we can maybe discuss.
We need to rope other people in, surely. Even we can't do 24 hours.
Well, yeah, I think you need a third person, because if you need a toilet break, then it's just one person talking to themselves.
Yeah, that's true. A monologue. That wouldn't be so good.
Yeah, aye. So that's one to consider. Watch this space. We'll see you at some point soon. When's Children in Need?
I don't know. I normally watch another channel when it's on.
Me too, to be honest. I used to get really annoyed when Children in Need was on, because EastEnders would be taken off the air. Now, it's not a problem now. You've got BBC iPlayer, you can stream things. But in the days of certainly, we only had 5 channels. When Children in Need came on, I was always disappointed.
I mean, I may have like chipped in, like, here's £2, but I didn't really have too much interest in, I don't know, a Lenny Henry skit. I really didn't. Yeah,
I don't want to see Noel Edmonds sitting in a bath of baked beans while Mr. Blobby gunges him or something. I don't even know what the format of Children in Need goes. But there's an idea
probably
for a podcast.
Probably doesn't involve those two. That's what I would say.
How about we talk about Edinburgh City for 24 hours in a bath of baked beans? There we go. Get the best of both worlds. One to consider.
I mean, I'd rather not, but if I must, it's an option. Put it that way.
Certainly, we'll talk you into it, but we'll do that off air, Shaughan, because we have got a lot to get through, and I think basically the theme of the teams we are discussing, it's effectively new. It's teams that are new to their respective divisions, and I say that is one of the themes. The other theme's loads of goals. So those are really the two reasons why I've picked these games. We'll start in the Championship, and we'll talk about a particularly probably the performance of the entire weekend. This was St Johnstone's impressive 5-1 routing of Partick Thistle. Now, despite going down to Paddy Redding's goal, Jamie Gullen equalised just moments later. Josh McPike scored an excellent hat-trick, and Stevie Malton capped the victory late on with an absolute bazooka of a free kick. And St Johnstone's outstanding early form continues after 4 consecutive victories of the League Cup. They're the early league leaders in the Championship. And Thistle, excellent League Cup campaign of their own, brought back down to earth a bit with a bang following this, their bottom of the table, although at this early stage, that doesn't really count for much. Shaughan, give me your shoot thoughts on St Johnstone 5, Partick Thistle 1.
I thought St Johnstone would end up winning this reasonably comfortably. I thought there would be, by full time, I thought there would be a bit of a statement in terms of there might be a confirmation that St Johnstone are somebody you would fancy for the league, and maybe Partick Thistle is somebody who are there or thereabouts for the top 4. Certainly, you wouldn't necessarily fancy them for the title. What I didn't expect is there to be quite such a gulf between the teams, because albeit St Johnstone's highlights didn't last too long. I think you had an option of 90 minutes or 5 minutes. Yeah. If only there was something in between. Yeah,
it felt like watching these matches, I felt like fucking Goldilocks going in there. It's like you can you can watch the entire match, or you can watch a sliver of the match. Can I not just get like a 12 or 13 minute highlights package? Because I was logged into the Courier and was reading, I think it was Eric Nicholson's 4 thoughts from the match, and he was talking about how, certainly in the early stages, St Johnstone were a wee bit shaky at the back. I think there was a couple of free headers that Partick Thistle had that weren't taken. And I thought, well, it'd be great to see that. You know, I mean, the highlights were good in terms of you get to see the goals and you can kind of get an idea of the passage of play that build up to it. But nevertheless, you want to see a wee bit more from what Thistle had to offer, maybe the difficulties that St Johnstone had to endure. So, yeah, if you could meet us in the middle, please, for covering St Johnstone games in the future, that'd be fantastic.
However, though, even though in those, whatever it was, 5.5 minutes, St Johnstone still probably passed up 1 or 2 opportunities. I think from everything I read, and even like Mark Wilson's comments afterwards, he admitted that they were very much second best, but I didn't expect it to be 5-1 going on 7-1. So from a St Johnstone perspective, from what I've read, like this is probably not the happiest they've been, but maybe the most encouraged they've been since maybe even the season where they won the 2 cups.
I think so. I think that was something that you and I spoke about last week, Shaughan, was how important this was a season for basically St Johnstone fans to reconnect with the club, because after 4 pretty difficult seasons where they'd gone from being like almost like a sure thing for the top 6 to becoming sort of like lower mid-table, to becoming like relegation fodder, to ultimately slipping out of the Premiership altogether. I think fans had quite a miserable time of it, and it was important that this season that football was fun again. You don't want it to be a chore going along to the football. You want to see things you were encouraged by. And I think, as we mentioned last season, there were moments where it flickered for St Johnstone. You could see the kind of football that Simo Valakari was trying to implement with his team. This, however, was maybe as fully formed as it's likely to be, and brilliant to watch. Yes, there's some shaky moments at the start, and I think that I don't think particularly Regan Tummelt had a particularly good game. I think he was hooked at half time.
I think he was booked though.
Is he booked?
I think he was on a booking, so you're right. It might have been, maybe it was a poor performance. I don't know. Hard to tell, but he was on a booking, so I wonder if that played into Valakari's thinking. I'm not sure. Okay,
I suppose, and you're marking Cammy Logan as well, who's not Cammy Logan, beg your pardon, Logan Chalmers.
Yeah.
God, that's just Cammy Logan Chalmers. That's the easiest way to remember that. But you're marking him, so maybe you take him off. But in terms of, like I say, in terms of what Valakari's looking for the team to do, to keep the ball, to manage the games well, because I think this is something that Eric Nicholson said. When the team were cruising through the match, it can be quite easy to overcommit. You know, everyone gets a wee bit carried away because they're doing so well. Everyone wants to get on the ball. Everyone wants to try things they wouldn't normally do because they're so confident. But it was just a very disciplined performance, but disciplined while completely big dogging a team that's going to go for challenge for promotion. And on top of that as well, if you think of how much fun this was to watch, the performance from Jamie Gullen, again, what a signing he's been so far. Stevie Malton looked excellent. Josh McPike. You know what Josh McPike's going to do. Cammy Logan might have come out to play without doing his homework. But all those things there. And then you chuck in Ross County throwing away a 2-goal lead against Airdrieonians and drawn there. I don't think this weekend could have gone any better for St Johnstone.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think it's... See the fact it's against Partick Thistle. Like, see if it had been against... Queen's Park, for example, or Airdrie, or maybe Arbroath. There might have been like a caveat, say, oh, well, it's against a part-time team, or it's against a side that's maybe expected to finish in the bottom 3. But against a Partick Thistle side that some people certainly fancy to finish in the top 4, that was quite a statement. And as you say, consider Ross County, because when I was looking at the scores, I was like, right, my goodness, that's some score coming through in Perth. However, it feels like Ross County are countering that at Airdrie, then their kind of late collapse, albeit after it's only 90 minutes, you do start to wonder if the kind of majority of the predictions about Ross County winning the league and St Johnstone maybe running them close but not being quite good enough are a wee bit wayward.
You might be right. I mean, not to go and start talking about Ross County, well, which I'm going to do. But watching the highlights against Airdrieonians there, I think that Airdrieonians might have shaded them as a better team. Yes, I'm only going by the highlights there, but I think it was something that we'd said there. The criticism of County, particularly in the early games in the League Cup, it was moments of magic rather than like cohesive attacking patterns of play that led to goal. And I think the fact that they didn't necessarily create much against Airdrieonians, and both goals came from a set piece. Which I think that's the sort of thing that would be disappointed in. The 2 goals they ended up conceding, Ewan Henderson, and great to see him playing well for Airdrie. He has started the season really, really well. But your game management's quite poor in that regard, and they looked quite panicky towards the end. I mean, the free kick they gave away that Henderson actually ended up scoring the equaliser from, and a really good goal it was as well. Not quite as good as Stevie Malton's, but a lovely goal all the same. Ross County just looked a wee bit spooked and a wee bit panicked by it.
Whereas I was just going to say, whereas St Johnstone absolutely bludgeoned their opponent. And it's like, you look at that St Johnstone team and you can quite clearly now see how they're set out and how it works in terms of a back 4 that should be absolutely adequate for the Championship, protected by Jason Holt, who I would imagine will probably be one of the better players, or certainly one of the better defensive midfielders.
Canny. That's how I describe Jason Holt, a canny player.
And then it's interesting in terms of Rhys McAleer. I wasn't entirely sure about him, but he started the season really well, kind of in alongside Holt. And then in front of them, it just feels like they have kind of three playing behind a forward, and all four of them just have a license to attack and kind of tie up the opponent, and it feels like they're doing that very, very well.
I mean, Jamie Gullen, is there, in fact, before we come on and talk about St Johnstone, in fact, no, fuck it, we'll keep talking about St Johnstone because they're far more interesting at the moment. But Jamie Gullen, we mentioned there, he's had an absolutely superb start to the season. 5 games, including the League Cup there, 5 goals and 3 assists. When he moved from Starks Park to Perth, would you have expected him to have this kind of impact?
No. And the reason I say that is because he'd been essentially tried everywhere in a forward 3 or playing wide or playing up top, maybe as a forward with people behind him. And he's always been, some weeks he'd be good, some weeks he'd be less so, some weeks you wouldn't notice him, some weeks he'd be hooked early. People appreciated him without necessarily thinking he was that great. And that's, I don't think that's because Wraith fans didn't rate him as such, but certainly they didn't give the performances that justified people really rating him.
Yeah.
Then maybe it's just because maybe he's now surrounded by a slightly better quality of player. I'm not entirely sure. But I didn't see this start to the campaign from him, but fair play to him. I think I said at the time, he's been at Starks Park 5 times. I look forward to him coming back for the 6th. I'm not entirely sure that will be the case now.
Well, if he comes back for a 6th time and he's as good as he's been now, oh my goodness, you've got a player in your hands. And I think he showed what Valakari's obviously unlocked something in him, but you can see the way for that equalising goal there, just the way he peels it, he looks so difficult to try and pin down by peeling between the centre back and the right back. And it's a really good ball into him from McAleer, but the touch and finish is really strong. And just this aspect of his game, having watched the highlights of him, and yeah, you could maybe say in the League Cup group stages, you beat Elgin 8-0, it's Elgin are a pretty middling League 2 team. But to do the same, to turn in the exact same kind of performance against one of the better sides in the Championship, really, really good. And that, like I say, that movement inside the box where defenders can't pin you down, but the people around you, like the good ball players, can pin you, like McAleer. Just really, really impressive stuff.
Yeah. And I do think maybe that wee spell in Ireland has helped. I got the impression that he'd bulked up a bit after he came back. So I thought his last spell at Wraith, maybe in terms of numbers, it wasn't his best spell. Excuse me. But some of his better numbers are coming in League One. But I did think as much as maybe didn't score too many goals last season, I thought physically, and I thought how he exerted themselves against opponents, that was maybe his best spell. Mm-hmm. But maybe it's taken St Johnstone to allow him to score goals or get assists, I suppose.
And sticking with players who have benefited from the move to St Johnstone, I think Josh McPike's one, because remarkable, a Rangers youth player, really impressed during a loan spell at Queen's Park, but found himself, did he have another loan spell elsewhere after that and it didn't work out, and he found himself playing for Stirling Albion. Then he gets signed for St Johnstone in the Premiership, and I think a lot of the time, at the time, people were like, ooh, I'm not sure about him. And I think the early impressions of him weren't particularly good. But, and I'm going by the guys that do the Big Boys podcasts, I think that as the season wore on, he was one of the few St Johnstone players to emerge with a degree of credit for it. And I think that fans were generally looking forward to seeing what he can do in the Championship. And my goodness, yeah, the second of his 3 goals, bit scrappy. But the other 2, that's what Josh McPike does. Dribbles down the left, wants to pin a defender coming onto his right foot and finish. And on both occasions, as question marks to be made about Cammy Logan and his defending there, but just he almost seemed to, on both occasions, just use Cammy Logan as a marker, like, go and just stand there, mate, and then just bend, and just to use him, say, if I put the ball round him, this is going to go in. So 2 identical goals there. But there's another player alongside Gullen who looks like he's really enjoying himself. Yeah,
I think it was... There might be a random guy on Pine Bovril, so whether this is true or not, I'm not sure. But there's certainly a couple of people who has suggested that McPike now has a young family,
Right.
And he's maybe started to knuckle down, whereas maybe that wasn't the case. And maybe a comparison would be
a couple of nights out, a couple of chasing the ladies, is it?
maybe a comparison would have been Dobie. I remember he went kind of down the leagues, was on loan at Dumbarton, and I think when you speak to him, he spoke about the fact that it was quite eye-opening, and he thought to himself, I don't really want to be at this level.
Yeah.
So I do wonder if McPike has had a similar awakening, I suppose.
Cool idea. You know the idea of what they used to do in the United States? It was like the Scared Straight program, where they put children into prisons to terrify them, to bring them back in the straight and narrow. Saying that with young football, just send them to Fourth Bank and say, like, you don't fucking knuckle down. This is the kind of place where you're going to end up. But I suppose, though, I mean, for the... And sorry, I can come and talk about Thistle just shortly. And the third player to highlight, and the third goal scorer in the match was Stevie Malton. The free kick is exquisitely struck. But one of the things that I really noticed was good. This is for McPike's second goal. This is the one where he kind of squeezed it in at the back post by just kind of nipping in front of Logan to get a wee toe on it. Malton does something. He almost like whacks the ball into the ground to bounce. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
He almost makes an artificial bounce on the ball to put it in across the face of goal. And I'm just thinking, I don't think there'd be many other players that would try to do something like that.
Yeah, I'd like there's always going to be question marks about somebody about Malin, even at championship level, when you haven't played for 2 years, and maybe who knows? Maybe he can't play 90 minutes every week. Maybe he'll need to be very, very carefully managed. Maybe he'll need to miss chunks of the season because of how his legs work, I suppose. But based on Saturday, he looked head and shoulders above most players that play in the second tier most Saturdays.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the goal that he scored, just a brilliant free kick, like melts it. And it's one of those ones where the goalkeeper can't really do much because, you set up your wall, and it's one of those ones, if it goes over the wall, like directly over the wall and into the net, it's like, well, fine, you can't do much. But it seems to, I'd say it catches the goalkeeper out, but I don't think he could have done anything about it anyway, because it's that powerfully struck, the swerve it takes to go up and over him and into the corner of the net. It's just a fabulously hit goal, and I think that it capped a really impressive performance. There's something when you beat a team, there's something at the number 5. I think 5's obviously odd numbers are when in football scores are better than even numbers, but there's something at the number 5. That's if it finished 4-1, you think still very impressive result. 5-1, however, that's a real sit up and take notice result.
Yeah, it's swept away, isn't it? Swept away. Like I found, was it Madonna that was in Swept Away?
She was in the remake of Swept Away.
That. Yeah, you can't see feeling that.
I was going through, just a wee side note there, went through a period a couple of years ago and I was buying all the worst films of all time. Movie 43, Sex Lives of the Potato Men, Keith Lemon, the film, The Room, for instance. I had all these in DVD and I bought Swept Away, but by mistake, I bought the original version of Swept Away, which is actually supposed to be very good.
Is that Oliver Reed?
In it. No, it's not Oliver Reed. I know the film you're talking about. He goes to an island with a young woman.
Amanda Donohoe.
Yes, that's it. Mm-hmm. That's actually quite a good movie.
Yeah, it's okay. It's of its time. I'm trying to think what the original Swept Away would be.
It's an Italian movie.
Ah, right, okay. Yeah. Surprised it's called Swept Away then. You think it would be an Italian
swept to a whale. whatever the Italian
swept to a whale. That's it.
Whatever the Italian equivalent of that is. But I didn't watch it. I wasn't interested. I want to watch Madonna. The one Madonna movie I did have was one called W.E., where it was a sort of reimagining of what was the name of the American actor who got involved with the king and made him abdicate? Wallace something.
I don't know.
Wallace Simpson, was that it? I think that was Wallace Simpson. I'm not going to Google it. I don't like Googling things from the middle of a podcast.
I don't think I'm familiar with that. I am familiar with Swept Away. I'm sure it had Kelly Brook in it.
No. You're getting your abandoned beach movies mixed up. Yeah, right. The movie Kelly Brook was in was called 3.
Oh, right? Yes.
It had Billy Zane and the guy from the Call on Me music video. who also did a stint in River City.
Well, you can see how I've got them mixed up. Maybe I'm completely unfamiliar with Swept Away. Maybe I've never even seen it.
I think you need to educate yourself before you come on here and make fun of Madonna's film law. You've got to, I can't remember the name of the Oliver Reed, the Man Donohoe one. But 3 was definitely the name of the one with Kelly Brook, because you just see it on Amazon Prime. I've seen it a couple of times. Kelly Brook's fantastic in it.
Surprised her career didn't take off after that.
Yeah, aye. If you want a good movie about someone stranded on a desert island, Castaway with Tom Hanks.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Sounds like it's right up your alley. Him and who?
Wilson.
Shaughan, I'm losing my temper with you, and you're getting stuff wrong here. We're going to have to move on here. We're going to have to move on. Partick Thistle's performance. Then, is there anything to be said about that? As you mentioned there, that Mark Wilson, full of praise for St Johnstone. I think that the disappointment for him was after taking the lead through Paddy Degan. It was actually a very well worked goal. Really nice back heel from Logan Chalmers to set up Cammy Logan to whip the ball in for Reading to somehow finish. Not 100% sure.
I wonder if it was him or an own goal. I wasn't 100% certain.
Yeah, but after that, I think he was kind of hoping that Thistle would maybe hold out for another 10 or so minutes, maybe get St Johnstone to another way of playing. It didn't quite work out, and then they collapse after that. Yeah,
I think you look at that, how they're set up in terms of Cammy Logan at right back. We'd already kind of singled him out as maybe wondering if he was quite up to this level, and maybe that'll come. But certainly they struggled on Saturday. I think as well in terms of protecting that back four, I'm not that sure about Robbie Crawford, and in terms of Luke Macbeth as a defensive midfielder, I know there's a good story about Macbeth. The fact he's come from I think it was the West of Scotland League,
in Glasgow, I think it was,
and that's good. And I do think that he is maybe limited to a degree, and maybe he's better as a centre half rather than necessarily a central midfielder. So there's definitely, it feels like there is holes to be plugged in terms of that Thistle team. I know they've signed Ben McPherson over the last day or two on loan from Celtic. Don't know much about him. If he's an upgrade in the fullback position, then fair enough. But there was nothing from Saturday's performance that made me think that they will be any higher than maybe battling for fourth. But even that, I'm not so sure about.
I did feel a bit sorry for Logan, because it was obvious he was struggling with McPike, and it's the sort of thing where you might make a substitution, but I don't think Thistle are necessarily blessed with a lot of quality in the fullback areas. But I thought that somebody give him a hand. If he's struggling against a player, somebody go over there and help him and force McPake to be doing something else. The fact that he was able to score 2 identical goals, it doesn't really reflect well on Thistle's organisation.
And you're right. And in his defence, Logan Chalmers is somebody who is certainly more known for going forward than helping out his fullback. So that probably didn't help. So I suppose food for thought for Mark Wilson.
I did like when Dan O'Reilly's post-match interview, the interviewer said it's a performance that won't go down in the annals of history. If I was Dan O'Reilly, I'd say, fuck up.
I think the interview lasted 54 seconds or something. It's really not bothering.
No. All the stuff's behind the paywall. I think all the good stuff is behind the paywall on the Jag Zone. And I think that was a bone of contention with Thistle supporters, that basically you need to pay money to access premium content, when most other clubs are putting highlights packages, good highlights packages, and good interviews with managers and players, comprehensive interviews with managers and players, all for free on their YouTube channel.
Well, I'd love to see the other 4 or 5 minutes of O'Reilly's interview in that case.
He looked absolutely miserable. I think if that interview had finished up at 54 seconds, he'd have been delighted. Back down the road, move on to the next one. And speaking of the next one, Shaughan, we've got a really tasty game on Friday. It could be an early 6-pointer in terms of the direct. It's not an early 6-pointer, but it's a big game in terms of giving us a barometer as to where that league title is going. Ross County versus St Johnstone, live on the BBC cameras on the Friday night.
Yeah, for some reason, I think St Johnstone will be the better team, but Ross County will somehow finagle a draw, maybe 2-2.
Sounds. I can see that happening. Very, very interesting. I think that I think there's a lot of pressure on County going into this one. Yep. I think I mentioned there at the end of the Airdrie County game, there was boos. You could definitely hear boos at the full-time whistle. There are a lot of people unhappy with the fact that he chucked away a 2-goal lead against a side that are expected to be mid-card at best, probably. The fact that St Johnstone had put a real statement win against Thistle. The fact that it's Don Cowie who has lost a lot of faith from the supporters. A lot of factors why those boos come from. If you lose here, I think that it'll be quite telling. I think telling the crowd response to that one. So I think it's really important that Cowie gets a positive performance here.
Yeah, I agreed. I agreed, and I think if he gets to perhaps the end of August and they're a bit away, then like John Robertson is the one that you would expect. But then Robbie Nielsen is still hanging around somewhere without a job.
No, he's become Lee Johnson's assistant manager somewhere. I think it's in Belgium. Yeah.
All right, okay. Well, in that case, John Robertson is by September. Cool.
Or Don Cowie to be given a contract extension. Maybe.
He's just a nice guy. He's a nice guy, isn't he?
He's a nice guy. Remember when they played Livingston, he was very keen to grass out that fan. The
spitter.
Sir, it was him. To be fair, spitting's disgusting, but it was quite.
I mean, nobody likes a grass, but nobody likes a flagger either.
Yeah, I'd rather be punched in the face than spat on.
I'd rather be spat on. Genuinely, I'd rather be spat on. You just wipe it off. You could have a broken nose if you get punched in the face.
Yeah, I've got very little going for me. I think my relative handsome-ish face, handsome-ish face, one of the few things I've got going for me. So I would like to hold on to that for as long as possible, please. But I just don't want to be spouting. Neither. Let's just go for a pint. That's easier.
Option C, none of the above.
Option D, what about Partick Thistle? Let's talk about Partick Thistle versus Greenock Morton.
Probably 0-0.
Okay.
Based on this, I wasn't overly impressed by Morton at the weekend, and I really do think that Partick Thistle are struggling. Feels like a meeting of two mid-table sides. Again, I expect it to be a draw of some description.
Fair enough. We will drop into League One and we'll head to the northeast of Scotland, where two foes from last season locked horns once again. Peterhead and East Fife, of course, neck and neck for last season's League 2 title. The Blue Toon, of course, edged it, won the championship. East Fife went on to win the playoffs, both promoted to the third tier, and the pair took on one another at Balmore. And although the Fifers took a lead through Lewis Latona, they were roundly bodied by their hosts. David Wilson, penalty from Kieran Shanks, and 2 goals at the end of each half from Jason Brown gave them the win. Peterhead are top of the table. East Fife are in 8th place. Shaughan, thoughts on Peterhead 4, East Fife 1?
It actually looked a wee bit similar to a game we've already described in terms of Alloa versus Steny versus Alloa. Judging by the highlights for the first maybe 15-20 minutes or so, it looked like East Fife were well on top. Could and should have been more than maybe a goal ahead, even though their goal was a bit of a squaff. Nathan Austin had one, maybe 2 really good chances, so they may have been 2 up before Peterhead equalised. But after they got their equaliser, what was it, midway through the first half? Yeah. Like it was only one winner, and at that point, 4-1 was probably quite reflective of how the game panned out after that point.
I think that's fair. It's something that Pink Campbell said in his post-match interview. He said the team could have been 3 up. The chance that Nathan Austin missed to put them in front was a really, really bad miss. Yeah. I mean, a player of Austin's calibre finding himself unmarked in the 6-yard box and somehow sclaffing at the shot was really poor. And the opening goal came a complete lack of concentration from Dylan Forrest. And Forrest, a player that I really like as well, trying to clip a ball out of defence and somehow hitting Alan Troughton in the head. And Alan Troughton's not the tallest guy. Alan Troughton's only about 5'8", 5'9". And then he plays in Latona for a really straightforward finish. And that could have changed the nature of the game there. But I think Peterhead was at 3 goals in 10 minutes. Ultimately, very straightforward. And that took the sting out of the game. And again, Campbell had said that the team saw more of the ball in the second half, but ultimately the state of the game's completely changed by that point. Peterhead have got a 2-goal lead they're going to hold on to and then get the winner or get a fourth right at the very end with a really, really well worked short corner routine, which I'm sure the coaches would have been absolutely delighted about. And I think with this one, Shaughan, I think this one kind of showed the difference as to where the two clubs are in terms of their preparation for the season ahead. I think Peterhead, I think that the transfer business they did, it was a couple of players out, a couple of players in, basically taking that core, that squad, adding to it, just making it better slightly. And East Fife just seem miles behind in terms of their preparation. 2 signings they've made, both on loan, and it just seems that they're not quite prepared for the season ahead, and that's even accounting for injuries. And even Peterhead had injuries as well, being the only 3 fit defenders for this one. So I think it's the chickens coming home to roost a wee bit for this one.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about East Fife in terms of their summer. Really weird. Feels like they're waiting on something, but I don't know what they're waiting on. Whether it's teams in the top flight maybe being able to release more players when they know what they're doing. No entirely sure, but regardless, it feels like they're leaving it too late. And as much as maybe I wasn't overly complimentary about Peterhead in terms of the business that they've done. You're right. That's not too many coming in, not too many coming out. But there is something to be said about a squad where there isn't a lot of turnover, where they are all familiar with each other. Like we used to say that about Arbroath in the past, or maybe even Montrose. So I fair play. But you're right. East Fife cannot afford to have a Saturday where they have 3, 4, 5 players missing, which seemed to be the case at the weekend. I think they had. I think their trialist goalkeeper was Robbie Hemfrey, to be fair.
That's right.
Who did that? I mean, I don't think he was at fault for any of the goals, to be fair. I thought what was interesting, as much as I said after the first half hour, it all seemed quite one-sided. Was it Jamie McInerney who was interviewed?
Yeah, I don't know who's class.
Yeah, I wasn't entirely sure who he was. Obviously, we are used to one of the managers getting interviewed. That wasn't the case. But it was really interesting when he gave, I suppose, a different perspective. And he was saying that he was involved in a conversation with the 2 managers, and they had a suggestion of how they wanted to play on the Saturday. And he was like, nah. I'm really sorry. I'm no keen on that at all. I don't think that's the right way to go. He said I was totally outvoted. It was 2-1. However, they were spot on, and everything they said worked out. So I thought that was quite interesting.
I really enjoyed listening to his post-match interview. I had no idea who Jamie McNee was. It turns out he's the assistant manager, and I didn't think that Peterhead had an assistant manager, because I presumed just the 2 managers would basically do away with the need for an assistant manager. But nevertheless, I'd never heard of Jamie McNee before, but I really enjoyed listening to him, and it's a good wee story there. You know, that we mentioned about the East Fife's lack of numbers. You know, guys like Kieran Miller was missing, Adam Laref was missing, guys who would have probably started this match. Matty Rollo would have started this match in goal. But the fact that Peterhead were really down to the bare bones with 3 defenders there, like Jason Brown, beg your pardon, who's effectively just nominally a centre-back, having to play a sort of weird left-sided centre-back role, where he's expected to get forward. And just him saying that, like arguing for the night before the match, arguing with them about you're going to attacking here, and ultimately 2 against 1, outvoted, and it paid dividends, because it was I'd say it was certainly the goals came from, I mean, 2 of them were set pieces, 1 of them was a deflection, and the other one was a penalty. So I can't really remember Hemfrey, going by the highlights, certainly being massively overworked. But nevertheless, after a pretty poor League Cup qualifying campaign, League Cup group stage campaign, where you lost to Clyde, you lost to Stennismere's job squad, albeit that Peterhead had rested players there as well. I think it was important that they got the win here. So I think that trying something completely different and starting the season with a bang and moving to the top of the table, I think that'll give them massive amount of confidence going forward.
Yeah, agreed. And you wonder about, I suppose, the opposite side of that, like East Fife, as much as they were also down to the bare bones. I think Mamadou Ba was taken off at half-time.
That penalty, Shaughan.
He had a disaster. I think there was a suggestion, you certainly didn't see it, there was a suggestion that his behaviour, whether it was, like, maybe he could have warranted a red card because of his behaviour, but he was taken off at half-time. But that's the thing about Ba. Like we've spoken about him in the past. He can be absolutely excellent, but sometimes he can be quite disastrous. On Saturday, when there really was no margin for error for East Fife because of how few players they had, he looked like he had a bit of a stinker.
Yeah, I mean, the tackle that he put in for the penalty, I think it was Max Barry that put the tackle on. Scores 1-1 at this point. East Fife took the lead after 20 minutes. Peterhead equalised after 23. So the game's still quite tight and it's still in the balance there. And East Fife might be thinking that we're under the caution wheel here. Let's just stay strong. And he dives into a tackle like that. Watching it, I was actually watching them through my fingers because it was just such a bad penalty to give away. There's sometimes where the attacker might just be faster than you. You put a leg, like the Stuart Malcolm lazy leg. You might stick something like that out. A referee's decision goes against you. But this was just, what are you doing? There's no need to slide in like that. And then Shank steps up and it's a comfortable penalty.
Yeah, and although Pink Campbell's comments after the game were very much, I felt like he was talking about the team as such. I did wonder if a lot of that was kind of aimed at Ba's performance. I mean, I think he said the defending was, he might have said disgusting, or certainly they described it really poorly, but I did wonder if a lot of that was aimed at Ba, and the fact that he was hooked at half-time may kind of supplement that, I suppose.
Yeah, but the poor defending continued after Ba. Certainly from that point. I mean, the goal, Jason Brown's first goal, just a header. He doesn't really need to move for it. The ball just gets chucked into the edge of the 6-yard box, and it basically just sort of nudges it into the net. You know the bit in Jurassic Park where he's like, "Push, little one, push." He's taking the wee dinosaur at the egg. That's the way Jason Brown treated the ball for that goal there. Just a wee nudge in. And then at the end, the final goal at the end, I thought this was, in terms of a set-piece routine, I thought this was excellently worked. But the impression I got was just that East Fife were just like, let's get back down the road.
They've given up at that point. I don't want to say I felt like they're giving up, but that's kind of how it felt like defending this set-piece routine, yes.
Yeah, so there's a lot of work to be done. And Alan Troughton after the match said, very unhappy with the level of performance he's expecting, apologised to the fans for the unacceptable level of performance. And yeah, I think with East Fife, I think that they've probably had a lot of players have come in and trial. I imagine that a lot of players have come in trial. I'm just waiting for the right ones because it's very easy to sign players, but you've got to make sure it's guys that are going to come in and actually supplement the squad and improve it and complement your existing pool there. I think that Dick Campbell might have been a wee bit over ambitious in like some areas in terms of the goalkeeper. We've seen some of the names that he'd been linked with and thinking that these players aren't going to go and sign for East Fife in League One. It's good to have ambition, and it's good if you've got the money there to do it. You should go and try and sign them. But these players aren't going to go and sign for teams in League One. They've gone to clubs far higher up the food chain. I really think that, like Liam McFarlane, there was a lot of eggs put in one basket that he would come back to the club, and what a positive impact he's had, as we've said there at Alloa Athletic. So it's a huge defeat. So they really need reinforcements, and they need them quickly, or they hope that these young guys that are coming through from the 20s can really make a difference to the team. Because it's one game, but feels like there's a bit of a wee bit of a malaise around East Fife at the moment, and there shouldn't be, because you've come off the back of a really good season. You're coming into a new division. You should be really excited for it, but the team is in bad need of some surgery.
Maybe their budget is really low, even by League One standards. But regardless, it feels like surely you had a plan A, and plan A was, right, we need a goalkeeper, we need a centre half, a right back, whatever 5 positions you want to fill, and you have a top target for each of those positions by wherever we are, the second week of August. You should really be, if it isn't your first target, it's your second target. As your second target, it should be your third target. The fact that they've barely brought in anybody by the second week in August is, I mean, that's, I don't want to criticise, but that's far from ideal And it already feels like East Fife are really, really on the back foot in a division that ultimately they were always going to be probably not one of the teams that you would expect to be in the bottom half, I suppose.
No, don't worry. Hamilton's 25-point deduction surely coming down the tracks, and that'll spare their blushes. But yeah, brilliant afternoon for Peterhead and a very difficult one for East Fife. Now, Shaughan, up next, East Fife Alloa Athletic.
I would hazard a guess that Alloa, who just win every single week, will come out on top of that. They'll probably have half an hour where they're rubbish, but still win 2-1.
Are you basically just describing the match from Saturday there? That sounds about right. And then Inverness Caledonian Thistle versus Peterhead.
As good as the Blue Toon were at the weekend, Inverness looked very, very impressive. So I will tip them for a home win.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Although I wonder if Peterhead will be as I'll say, like if you saw the goals that Inverness Caledonian Thistle scored against Kelty at the weekend.
Kelty were defensively poor.
I was just thinking, God, as long as Peterhead don't play like Kelty Hearts did. But then the goal they gave away against East Fife came from trying to do exactly that. So, as long as... See Dylan Forrest next time, kick it a wee bit higher. Kick it a wee bit higher next time. You're golden. You're absolutely
higher
sorted.
And longer.
Higher and longer, aye. Away from Alan Troughton's skull. Now, we will pay a visit to League Two for the third and final match of this podcast, and we will talk about East Kilbride's first ever league fixture as an SPFL club. They were taking on the Spartans at K Park, their erstwhile Lowland League rivals, but it was the visitors who came out on top, winning 3-1. Cammy Russell, who had an excellent performance, he opened the scoring for the Spartans after 8 minutes. Keir Foster netted an equaliser with a deflective effort shortly afterwards, but 2 goals from Mark Stowe, one of which is an early goal of the season contender, gave Dougie Samuel's side an unassailable lead. Spartans top of the division early on, and East Kilbride are down towards the bottom. Shaughan, thoughts on East Kilbride 1, the Spartans 3?
Did not see this coming at all. I must admit, I did think that Spartans would give them a game. Just because of how East Kilbride play, I thought that Spartans had a chance. But by that, I thought might be a high-scoring draw. Maybe Spartans would sneak it. Maybe East Kilbride will sneak it. I didn't see Spartans winning 3-1. And based on East Kilbride's good highlights package, I mean, like 13 minutes, and even though their co-commentator sounds like he may be 12, and I know that sounds like I'm exaggerating. It does sound like he's 12. I think he's good. I think he's really good.
I think it's Simon Ferry's son.
Oh, really?
This is the co-commentator,
I think he's pretty good.
He's all right. He's all right. The first time I watched him, I watched the highlights twice, and I thought, it's a young lad. It's obviously, I wonder how he got that job. You know, I didn't think he was adding much. But then when I watched it back the second time, like the wee stats there about, like, I didn't realise that Cammy Russell used to play for East Kilbride. I thought that's a really useful stat. He's obviously done his homework, and he must be about 11 or 12. So he's obviously going to get better as the season goes on. So that's class for East Kilbride. So yeah, good highlights package. Callum Patterson as well, who's the main commentator. Very good, very experienced at the commentary. So yeah, a good highlights package, and I think it did give you a decent-ish reflection on how the match had gone.
Yeah, I thought so. So I was impressed with their highlights package, and as you say, it was 3-1. It felt like it could have been more, and even Mick Kennedy afterwards said that they were, I can't remember how he described it, like worthy. I don't think he said worthy losers, but maybe describe Spartans as worthy winners. But he was absolutely bang on. They won unusually comfortably, you would probably say.
Last week, when we talked about East Kilbride's weaknesses, we wondered maybe if when you come across against a team who are a bit bigger than you and might not necessarily want to play football, that East Kilbride might struggle. And I think that's what happened here. However, the Spartans were generally very good. The Spartans are a good footballing team. You know, you can't be anything other than a good footballing team. You've got Cammy Russell and that midfield two of Sean Welsh and James Craigan. But I think that East Kilbride, going by the highlights, looked as though they were maybe taken aback by how aggressive the Spartans were. You know, some of the challenges were quite full-throated, like sliding in for the ball, like going full pelt, pressing aggressively. And I don't necessarily think that East Kilbride had an answer to it. I think that something that Kennedy pointed out And this is similar to what Ian Campbell said about that the second half, they saw lots of the ball. But by that point, Spartans have got a 2-goal lead.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily need to come out and try to play in the front foot. So for East Kilbride having lots of possession, and this is the sort of stuff that's not going to make it into the highlights, because effectively it's like horseshoe football where it's just getting moved slowly from one side to the other. And that's something that Kennedy said in the post-match interview, that for the kind of football that East Kilbride want to play, they have to be a lot quicker with what it is that they're trying to do.
And as we said in the preview podcast, there is going to be occasions where East Kilbride ultimately play themselves into bother. And for those, was it first 2 goals that they conceded?
Certainly the first one.
They certainly played themselves into bother.
Well, yeah, it's like the first goal, it's like Rhys Breen is trying to play the ball out from the back, and he plays basically not even at an angle really, it's a 90-degree pass, a square pass straight forward. I think it's Jamie Dishington that's right on top of it. And then it's a nice wee bit between Stowe and Dishington. The ball's flicked over for Cammy Russell. And I think that the chance would never come if Breen had been a bit more assured with his passing. Yep. And I think Freddy Owens was a bit indecisive with his goalkeeping. I think you might have wanted him to have read it a bit quicker and come out and made himself bigger. But I think that by his indecisiveness, it just gave Russell the chance just to get his toe on it and lift it over him into the net. The second goal was just, it's a long ball over the top, and I think Breen does the right thing by nudging over to his goalkeeper. I think what Owens tries to do is to take away from Stowe, is to drop the shoulder and bring it onto his right foot, but just completely miscontrols it, and the thing bounces over his foot, and Stowe's got a chance to tap it into the net.
It looks it looks hideous. He kind of, as you say, he almost runs past it.
Kind of. I can see what he's trying to do.
And then squaffs it. I mean, it's a hideous goal to lose.
I can see what he's trying to do, because I watched it back a couple of times. I was thinking, should Breen have passed it to him? But yes, Breen should have passed it to him, because otherwise... I'm not saying that Breen shouldn't have given it to him. However, there's not a lot of distance between Breen and Owens, so it maybe wasn't ideal. However, it wasn't the wrong thing to do, I suppose. Yeah. Aye, it's a bad goal to lose, and it's just. I think that Freddy Owens is a goalkeeper who he signed a professional contract with him, so they've obviously got a degree of faith in him. And we say it a lot of the time. We said it a lot last season. Is that if you're taking young players on loan, they're going to develop, but they're also going to make mistakes, and they're going to make mistakes in your dime, and that's the sort of the payoff that East Kilbride have to make with a goalkeeper. Saying Owens is highly rated, but didn't have his best performance on Saturday there. And
I think they have Joe Morrison as well on loan, who ultimately falls into the same category. So interesting to see how that plays out.
I mean, the last game that Morrison was involved in was against Inverness Caledonian Thistle. Didn't necessarily play well, and that was culpable for a couple of the goals. Certainly, though, that you can't say anything that anyone was culpable for Mark Stowe's second goal, which is beautiful. What I loved so much about this goal is when he hits it, it's the trajectory of the ball. See, when you see the shot, the camera's in a really good angle for it, because it goes outside of the frame of the post and bar, and then just dips in just at the very end, and Owens would have absolutely no chance of saving this. The ball it's one of those, it's whipped, it's caressed, it's spanked, it's nudged, all these wonderful sort of like antonyms all put together to just create this absolutely fabulous goal. It's a really well hit goal, and it's good to see Mark Stowe finding his feet, because of course he moved from Linlithgow Rose, who were playing in the East of Scotland Premier Division at the time, all the way to Arbroath. Probably too big a leap for him, but obviously a very useful player, and maybe dropping down into League Two is a good level for him to develop as a player. But he looked pretty handy here.
Yeah, I wasn't overly impressed by him in the Championship, but as you say, that is a massive leap. However, judging by what we've seen so far in League Two, he is very much adept and maybe at a level that he can impress at, I suppose. But my goodness, you're right, an absolutely incredible strike. But certainly that kind of 3-1 scoreline, like it didn't flatter Spartans. If anything, it could have been 4, it could have been 5.
Yeah. There was I mentioned at the start, I thought, going by the highlights, I thought Cammy Russell was absolutely excellent here. As someone who's a good player, we highlighted him as a player to watch this season, and just a lot of the stuff that he did was brilliant. He had one where And I think this is where Spartans, their game management was very good. Something that Kennedy highlighted, where they were just quite happy to sit in and take the ball and maybe just wait on a loose pass coming in, where he basically, I think he ran from inside his own half. Like his shot was straight at Owens. It was a good save, ultimately coming out and making himself big. But I think he ran out of puff a wee bit to go from there. But there was another one where he set up an effort for. He set up an effort for Jamie Dishington. Russell runs down the left. He goes to the byline. Hold up plays absolutely superb and slips it to the penalty spot for Dishington. And I think it might have been Owens might have saved it, or somebody might have dived in front of the shot to block it. But that could have been another goal. Sonker had a chance. Sonker had a free header from about 6 yards that he didn't quite get enough power on it, and it was blocked in the line. But there's the number of chances that they had. And Jack Leach hit the post. But other than that, and the goal, you didn't really see much. Then Paddy Martin wasn't overly exercised in this game.
Yeah, and to be fair, I don't think every week East Kilbride will come up against a team in League Two that have as much quality or ability as Spartans do. I suppose there might be a wee bit of concern, and again, you're difficult, I suppose, to ascertain from kind of 12 or 13 minutes. But if Spartans were sitting in that second half and East Kilbride were struggling to break them down, you would imagine a lot of teams in League Two will sit in against East Kilbride, and if there is a struggle to break them down, then that's something that Mick Kennedy needs to get his head around, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. I suppose it's when they're at their best, it's all about moving the ball really quickly. And that, again, touched on that there in his post-match highlights. It's moving the ball quickly, and if you're encountering low blocks, which I've no doubt East Kilbride did when they were in the Lowland League, a lot of teams would have just set up for damage limitation against them. They're a really good side at being able to cut teams open with a couple of passes. I'd said that the couple of times I've seen them, and it was against full-time opposition as well. They can cut teams open from the back to the front, all very, very quickly with precise passes. If the team's sitting deep there, then like a team like the Spartans as well, where it's like good experienced players like Callum Booth and Sean Welsh and James Cragen just in front of that defence who are really vocal, really good organisers. You know, like Sean Welsh is the captain of Queen's Park there. Uh-huh. When you've got guys like that, it's a wee bit of a step up, and you're absolutely right. It's just finding, like, going on the training pitch and making. I think we said that the time we've seen Kennedy compromise his principles was for a game at Bonnyrigg.
Yep.
And that's really difficult. That's really in a playoff match, which ultimately don't lose. You get promoted into the SPL. Completely different circumstances to a run-of-the-mill league game. You know, the pitch, the context of the game, and all that. So I think it's just about making Plan A better. I think he only knows really knows the one way, making Plan A better. And you know, they've got a great chance to bounce back. They're playing up at Elgin at the weekend, a team who they already demolished. So I think it's a good chance for them to get back into the saddle. But not for the flag day, what should have been a really good day for them. Quite a disappointing result.
I suppose as well, if you're playing an opponent, and this, I would imagine most Saturdays than not, East Kilbride might score first. Mm-hmm. And at that point, the opponent, their heads might go down. It becomes an easier Saturday, whereas Spartans scored first, so therefore it becomes a far more difficult and I suppose challenging afternoon. So as much as it was eye opening in terms of how much East Kilbride struggled, I still expect them to do really well. But it was interesting, put it that way.
I mean, we've not really spoken about their goal. I've got to say, the pass from Magnus Mackenzie to slip in Nathan Flanagan, outstanding pass. Mackenzie's a really, really good player. I think Mackenzie's got a high ceiling. I think I said that last week. When he bulks up a wee bit, then he's going to be a really good player, because he's very composed in the ball, very energetic, can go up and down, and you saw the quality there. That is defence splitting pass, and a great bit of play from Flanagan there to just touch it back to Foster. Foster gets a wee bit lucky because I think Martin would have had that covered. I can see what Sonker's trying to do, basically slide in and get the block, but it's just inadvertently touches it away from Martin and into the net, really giving the goalkeeper no chance. But in terms of how it was worked to Foster, really, really nice stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it showed you what East Kilbride are capable of, but like over the piece. That was, other than maybe hitting the post, that was as much as they did. So it was a disappointing day when they were raising the flag, I suppose.
I'd like to have got Dougie Samuel's thoughts on this game,
but we never will.
We never never will.
Is the camera?
As you feel, well, the camera cut to someone when the ball had moved down to the other corner flag. The camera cut to someone who might have looked a bit like him. But I'd like to hear from him, because this is these are teams I'd be expecting. I think East Kilbride will still win the division. I still think that they've got the quality there to do it, and that again. Kennedy, in his post-match interview, really interesting to listen to. Said that last week, we'll say it again, really interesting to listen to. And he said, not too disappointed about winning this game. We're just looking forward to the next match. And likewise, I wouldn't be doing cartwheels had we won it. So it's all very grounded. Nothing's won at this stage of the season. I still think they'll win it, but it felt like, I think it's a big win for the Spartans to go there and to tactically outsmart a team and push around a team as well that are a lot of people's favourites.
Yeah, I mean, considering how we spoke about East Kilbride, considering how most people felt about East Kilbride, I think most people wondered or expected them to win quite comfortably. To see that, not just that result for Spartans, but actually the performance as well, makes it a wee bit more interesting. So I was quite encouraged by it. I don't mean that in a bad way, but maybe it's not going to be a one-horse race, put it that way.
Cammy Russell's red card, thoughts?
I thought it was really, really harsh.
Yeah, I couldn't quite tell, and again, this is where the East Kilbride highlights are really good, but sort of zooming in and give it a sort of slow down. I think he catches him with sort of a studs up around his ankle, but it didn't look deliberate or particularly nasty. I think it might be the sort of thing that the Spartans could appeal, because I think that Russell off the back of that game will be a huge miss for them.
Yeah, I thought it was worthy of a yellow, but nowhere near a red.
Interesting as well, Blair Henderson didn't feature at all in this match.
Yeah, and maybe they were better without him.
Maybe it is. I think that,
or maybe they just have strength and depth that we didn't necessarily acknowledge.
Or that tactical thing where we're going to have to sit in and contain them. We're just going to need to play loads of fast players. So maybe almost like playing a 4-2-4-0 in that regard, and it ultimately worked, because if you know what you're going to get from East Kilbride, it's a team that want to keep the ball, sit in, wait for a mistake to happen. You've got guys there, Craigan, Welsh, who can pick the ball out and play passing, and you've got Stowe and Russell there, who will be happy to hang in the shoulder last defender and run and get them. And it worked, so it might be a blueprint for other teams to follow. There was jokes that were being made about wonder who's going to carry the can for this defeat. And just on Monday night, Regan Mimner that has been placed in the transfer list for this. He came as a sub, I think, with about 30 minutes to go in this match, and I don't know what the situation is there, but I thought that Mimner would have been a useful player to have around. And I know that it's like he might be unhappy that he's not started, because I think he's only started at the 5 games, only started 2 of them, come off the bench in the other 2. It's the League Cup and the league game here. So maybe he's unhappy that he's not getting a start. But it just seems, we've already seen Luke Main transfer listed. We've seen Regan Mimner transfer listed. We've seen 2 players come in that left immediately. So it just you tend not to see that.
I would expect Mimner to potentially sign for a club that's in League One.
Yeah.
Or certainly a decent League Two team. So I suppose if you go back to kind of Mick Kennedy's comments about the players that left, remember why have they just signed and then been moved on again? He talked about he doesn't want unhappy players and players that might not get a game. He's happy to move them on. If you're taking them at face value, then maybe we're in that situation again. However, I'm surprised at that, because without knowing loads about the East Kilbride squad, I would expect Mimner to be a good player to have in that team. But here we are.
Yeah, definitely. Would I take him at Stennismuir? I think that's the only reason he didn't really kick on at Queen of the South, because of just injuries and so on, and that's why he had to take a relatively large drop into the lower league, get his mojo back,
and salary.
And so that might help. That might help. It's not for me to say. I'm just thinking. I'm love of the game, mate. Love of the game. That's how I'm approaching it. But yeah, interesting result, certainly. And Shaughan, up next, as mentioned, Elgin City versus East Kilbride.
Something, I'm going to go for a draw. I think it'll be entirely different from the League Cup game, and it'll finish all square 2-2.
I think it's going to be a repeat of the League Cup game, and East Kilbride are going to win this one 4-1. We've also got the Spartans versus Dumbarton.
Obviously Dumbarton had a good result at the weekend. I wasn't overly impressed by their performance, therefore I think Spartans will get all 3 points.
That's interesting. I'm going to go for I've got a 2-1 win for the Spartans here as well. Now, we'll finish this podcast. Unfortunately, have to finish this one on a bit of a downer. We have to finish the show by discussing Edinburgh City's points deduction. On Tuesday morning, the Citizens were docked 15 points, quote, as per SPFL rules and clubs suffering an insolvency event. This deduction follows a provisional liquidator being appointed in respect of the club on July 22nd this year in relation to an unpaid debt due by the club. Similar to administration, the provisional appointment of a liquidator is an insolvency event under SPFL rules. So they are now bottom of the table, minus 15 points. They are going to be appealing the decision immediately. No further comment will be made from the club at this time. And judging by some of the comments in Pie and Ball, people well connected with the situation, it sounded like a relatively small sum of money, which is now being paid in full. But I think that when you hear the words like provisional liquidator, if it is 10 minutes, 10 months, whatever, just as soon as that's in, that's boom, that's a red flag.
Yeah, I do wonder if whoever was owed the money ultimately pulled that lever to make sure that they got paid. That sounded like that lasted about 6 or 7 days, and then they were able to prove that they'd paid that day off. Now, whether people think it's harsh or not in terms of what happened next, but I believe that's just how it works. If there is a kind of liquidation, a potential liquidation event, then you get a 15-point deduction. I suppose, regardless of whether it's fair or not, you just have Edinburgh City fans who, like, they just want to go on a Saturday and enjoy the football or not enjoy the football, but no worry about what's happening off the park. And now we're in the situation where they have to worry about what's going on off the park again. Now that's on bottom of the league. They have to win 5 games just to catch up with everybody else. You wonder how that affects the manager, if he wants to stay on, how it affects sponsors, how it affects players. Like, there will absolutely be, you would imagine there will be knock-on effects to this, and it's very, very unfortunate.
Yeah, gutted when I saw it came through. Actually, it made a oh no sort of noise at my desk when I saw the news come through. Yeah, all that stuff there. You're absolutely right in everything you've said there about how the fans must be feeling. The manager, like if I feel as though that McIndoe has managed to get a lot from Edinburgh City on such a small budget, and I think I don't know what he's feeling. If he wants to walk away, if he feels let down by the club for he's put loads into it and managed to, like you say, managed to get a lot from it, and then because of something like £5,000 hasn't been paid, you'd be like, well, I'm trying my best here. Yeah. I need everyone pulling in the same direction. He might be entitled to walk away. I think that if he does walk away, I could see he really feels like the glue, the linchpin that holds all that together. I think if McIndoe was to go elsewhere, I could see Edinburgh City really struggling. However, I think if there's anyone that's up for a fight, it would be McIndoe. I think that he always needs to have something to kick against. I remember, again, going back to the pod we had last week where we said that now the expectations in Edinburgh City have changed. Everyone thought you were going to struggle. Now everyone thinks that you're going to have a good season, you're going to get promoted. Now everyone thinks you're going to struggle. So that's the challenge. It's all about surviving again. Uh-huh. So that's basically that he's got something he can use as a siege mentality to try and galvanise the players. I'm sure they were all galvanised as well. We saw the video from the pre-season training of them all linking arms and walking into the sea together. So there's a good spirit there. But this is just such a disappointment. After such a good season last year and such a good feeling around the club to suddenly have off-field shenanigans disrupt it. It's really, really disappointing, really scunnered with it.
Yeah, and I think they can appeal, and I think they are appealing, and fingers crossed they have some. I would imagine they still have a points deduction, but maybe it's reduced. But so we'll see how that goes. But you're right, it's a hugely disappointing way to start the campaign.
Yeah, and I suppose that Dumbarton will be relieved. Of course, they've started the season with their own 5-point deduction. They've now chipped away at that after beating Clyde. They'll probably breathe a sigh of relief, but it won't be it'll be like in Do They Know It's Christmas? Tonight, thank God it's them instead of you. Dumbarton or Bono in this scenario.
Exactly that.
Aye, but Shaughan, I think we'll probably leave it at that. There's so many things that we haven't been able to talk about. Clyde's statement complaining about their fans' conduct, Nick McAllister gate crashing the set of the new Spider-Man movie, Willie Gibson volleying an Elgin player into the back of his net. There's so many things that we haven't had a chance to touch on, and all these wild moments will be lost in time like tears in rain.
It was a good opening week, wasn't it? I enjoyed it.
It was class, man. It was class. I do feel for that Elgin player's ribcage though, because he really took a sore one. Really took a sore one. Now, Shaughan, we are going to record a special episode for our Patreon subscribers where we answer their questions. It's a new season, but the ideas are very old. And if you want to hear us talk about it for another half hour or so, you'll need to get your checkbooks out, because it's just for as little as £2 a month, you can access hundreds of hours of content about Scottish football. It's incredible value. You won't find it anywhere else, so do it. If you want to hear our Patreon answering your questions and get involved for as little as £2 a month, you can do it. Now, Shaughan, there is loads of action taking place over the weekend, and if you're going to your match, enjoy your football, but unlike the critic who wrote, if you're honestly wondering whether Double Team is any good, I can't help you, please do so respectfully. Thank you, Shaughan. He's still laughing there. So just, Shaughan, thank you to Shaughan, and thank you to you, the listener. Goodbye. God bless.